Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, I'm bringing you guys awesome interviews. It is an honor and privilege to have this gentleman who's on the phone with me right now. He is from the legendary and iconic band Warrant. Thank God they are still around. They have a current CD that's out called Rockaholic, and we're going to be talking to him about that. Plus, they're on tour right now, so if you get a chance, please get out and check out Warrant. So, Robert, how's it going?
It is going really well. How about yourself on a fine afternoon for me and evening for you?
It's doing awesome. Like I said, I'm glad to get you on here. I'm a fan of your guys' music from the old and to the new. So, Rockaholic, what impressed you the most about making that album, Robert?
Well, it was fun in a lot of ways, and it reunited me with a guy named Keith Olsen, who I kind of brought in. I did a record years ago, one of my first big, my first big barbecue with a band called Lynch Mob in 1990, 91, with Keith Olsen, who's a legendary producer. Everybody with the internet, just go look at everything Keith Olsen's done and what he's been a part of. And it was a really fortunate thing for me, for us to have chosen Keith to do the Lynch Mob record way back then. And then when we were sifting around, through all the producer names, I brought up Keith, and we had a great interview with him and just decided to use him. He's a great song guy. He's a great songsmith. He's been instrumental in making so many classic songs hits, or at least hit worthy through the years. So he's just a great song sense. We get along really well. In the years between doing that Lynch Mob record and doing our Rockaholic record with Warrant, Keith has used me, like a dozen times as a singer for hire, or a guy to come in, everything from background vocals to ghosting lead singers to, throughout the years between 91 and just a few years ago, co-writing songs with bands that he brings in the studio. So for me to reunite with him was a high point. Clearly, to have a Warrant record that was my own, to offer some sort of, I guess you could even say, legitimacy. That's not too harsh a word. I mean, we were all friends. The friendship that Warrant's former singer Jani Lane and I had from way back in the day was instrumental in my band Lynch Mob opening up for Warrant in arenas years ago. So it was a cool, organic fit, kind of like a complete circle to be able to do that Rockaholic record. We are doing a new one. We're finishing up some songs as we speak, so we'll probably end up, recording in the fall and winter to have it out sometime next year.
I know you mentioned that Keith Olsen was a big part of this album, but how is work with him? Did he just pretty much just let you guys do your own thing and then step in when he needed to? Or
Well, the thing about Keith is, like I said, he's got such great song sense.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who I can always bring ideas to. I get a good sounding board. He's one of those producers. He's not a negative guy at all. He's like happy every day. He's in the studio with a smile and a cup of coffee, and it's, hey man, come on, let's make some music. So for me to have that experience so strongly and indelibly etched in my mind from years ago,
right?
You don't always. I mean, getting on with a producer is like getting on with people. In any other work situation or friend situation, and he was both to me. And he really kind of brought me along and mentored me to a certain degree. Whether or not he realized he was doing it, just being around that guy, you learn stuff every day. And I was like a sponge when I was a kid in the studio and learned so much from him. It's, we had a great sense with each other too. Between he and I and the recording engineer, we work really efficiently together. And that to me is key. Because the studio can be a wonderful, enlightening place, or it can be a terrifying place, especially on my end of the glass. You get that in the control room paranoia, whatever, everything else. I mean, I love the studio, but let's face it, not everybody has the full, dream experience there.
Right.
Certain times with certain people, and it's not throwing fault out. It could be anybody's combination of personalities or whatever, or the way they work or anything. You can have a great experience, you can have a tepid experience, or you can have a hellish experience in the studio.
any songs that stand out to you more on this album, Rockaholic, man, if any?
Not to be selfish, there are things about all of them, and I'm not just copping out to say that. I don't want to make it about me. It's like getting together with the Warrant guys. Gary Dix and I, very early on, got together and said, okay, let's write, and let's throw ideas up against the wall and see what sticks. He came to me, he's like, hey, Mace, you're a songwriter. You're not just a lead singer. You can contribute. Do you feel like doing a record? And he and I, like I said, started doing this when I was just in the band a few months, and I would fly or drive out to his place or vice versa, and we would just work on songs on off days. We came up with enough material after a few years that we really thought made a whole record together, and then that's when we got Keith involved. So, everybody does their part. I did bring, I guess, 6 or so ideas to the band. I might have brought more to the band, but 6 made it to full demo stage where I did them in my house, just playing everything using a drum machine, and then brought it to the band. They said, okay, well, these 6 are great the way they are. Let's just add, we're making these go on the record. And then 4 of them, I think, made the final cut. Because, you record a bunch of songs, and then through the process, I think Keith did great at that too. He sees the whole vision. Producer's got to be kind of like the referee.
Yeah.
He's wearing the striped shirt and the whistle,
Yeah.
And I mean, you can arm wrestle him. I mean, he's open-minded, but he's still Keith Olsen. So, you listen to him, you go, okay, you're probably right. We won't put this one on. We'll put this one on.
Yeah.
So on the Rockaholic record, 4 songs made it that were like completely my own composition. But then you turn them over to the band and everybody has to make the parts their own. Mm-hmm. So everybody, whether or not it was somebody's idea to write the song, they all throw their bits in and it sounds like a Warrant record to me. I can listen to my demos and in a few stages, they're vastly different. I think a couple of the ballads that I did probably ended up really close from the raw demo stage. I could play them with an acoustic and they're pretty much the arrangement I wrote out, and we just kind of had everybody, throw down on it and embellish it, and then a little production value from Keith, and they became the songs that they were.
Right.
Home is kind of a fun song for me to write. I came home from playing a few dates, and as I do, get up first thing in the morning, look out on the mountains in the desert in front of my house, and get a cup of coffee and an acoustic guitar and try to write a song. If something comes out, great. If nothing comes out, I move on. But yeah. I think that one kind of fell out of me in about 10 minutes. Like you hear people talk about songs that are complete labors and then other ones that just happen by accident. That was one of those ones that just kind of, it was almost too simple. I'm like, no, there's no way this is a song. I'm like, I'll demo it anyway. And then I put an arrangement together. Okay, maybe this has got something. Then I played it for the band. They were like, oh my God, this has to be on the record. So,
It's like catching lightning in a bottle, man.
It's exactly what it is. It's, it's when the muse is upon you, so to speak.
Yeah.
Sometimes it hits in an airplane. So I get ideas in the shower. Man, thank God for iPhones with like a little audio recorder.
Yeah.
And waterproof cases, because I keep that with me all the time. I've grabbed it and had to sing and like wet hands grab the phone, grab a guitar, grab something, and put ideas down. It's taking a motorcycle or a car ride, pull over on the side of the road and having a hum into your phone. It's pretty funny, but
I mean, you're not the only one that's actually said that on this show. I mean, it comes with the territory.
It's the thing about the human brain, and if you're inclined to that sort of inspiration, for me, it's something that makes you forget about things that will bring about for me like a melody line,
right,
or a couple of words, or I'm watching a movie, or I'm reading a book, and you're not like plagiarizing, but if you're in a certain mood, or you hear a certain thing, or you read a street sign, and all of a sudden you have the start of a story. It really does happen that way sometimes. I rarely sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write a short story about this guy and this person, this situation. It usually starts with that little spark, whether it's musical or lyrical and literary, and it just goes from there.
I'm going to ask this, and this is, about Jani. I just want your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts coming into the band after Jani's passing to be the vocalist of this group? What was your
thoughts? I was in the band 3 years while Jani was still alive.
Well, okay. I mean, coming in to take over his vocals, what was your thoughts on this, man?
Well, he and I were friends, and we had, our bands had toured together, and I had become friends with everybody. And had spent a lot of time with Jani while we were on the road together, because it was 91, 92, or 92, 93, whenever it was, Lynch Mob Tour. So he and I were really tight, but I did make friends with everybody. So there was, like I said, there was that organic kind of chemistry there. Mm-hmm. I was already a fan. I had heard the songs a bunch. I used to do the Lynch Mob set, then go take a shower, go to catering, grab some food, and go sit on the side of the stage and watch the Warrant set. So when we were playing whatever it was, we're at the Fargo Dome, or we're at blah, 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 college basketball arena or hockey arena or shed or amphitheater, we would hang out a little bit together. Jani was in a place where he couldn't and didn't, well, let's just say didn't, whatever your opinion of addiction is or however you view it,
right.
He succumbed to it, and he was not able to come out from under that cloud. And when they needed a guy, I saw 4 out of 5 guys up there for the right reasons, wanting to play those songs. It's not just make a buck. I mean, these guys love what they do, and we were friends. So when the fortuitous meeting happens, like it did when we all met at Rocklahoma in '08, and I saw what a mess Jani was, to be honest with you, and I mean that like a friend to say it. Like when you see a guy that's in your past, and you see him in a really dark place, and you're like, God, dude, I want you to fix yourself. And they hired a sober coach on the road for months and months that he snuck around and could not, didn't stay away from the problem. And mm-hmm. Those guys I saw 4 guys who were my bros in this horrible situation where they've got renewed enthusiasm for their band. They're, that headlining Rocklahoma that night when I saw them, or the next night, and where's our singer? Oh, he might make it. He's in rehab again, and if it's, when they realized that the road was no place for that guy to be, and it was just going to be that vicious cycle, and it was going to be bad all the time, it was a terrible thing for them to have to come to grips with. And months later, after giving him umpteen chances and just all of that, they decided, and the whole, they decided they wanted to, it was kind of a selfish thing for him to hold them hostage like that. And he had done it before a lot. And I won't go into detail, but
yeah, right.
That's just the way it goes. I mean, it's always a terrible thing to see. I didn't want to see it. When they got back together, I sent him text messages and voicemails. I'm like, hey man, I can't tell you how happy I am. Just keep on the straight and narrow, and hope you guys do great. And then I started to see and hear the reports about how it wasn't going well. Yeah. So, I was kind of in the dark about it until I ran into them in Rocklahoma. They had only played 11 shows with him total. And it was just, all the problems were rearing their ugly heads. And you've got, like I said, 4 to 5 guys there for the right reasons, and one guy, and wanting to make it work, and one guy just refusing to make it work. So when they sent them home, it couldn't have been fun for any of those guys. I mean, let's face it. But, they came to me and said, what do you think? And I said, well, I had my issue with it, but let's go sit in a room and see what happens. So we the first thing, we didn't talk any business. We went in a rehearsal place and banged out 5 or 6 songs, and everybody just stood there like, this could be really, really cool. We have a show opening for Alice Cooper in Tucson in a week. Do you want to do it? And I said, okay. I have time to do 1 rehearsal because I have a whole bunch of other stuff to do. I was like, okay, we rehearsed once, and I just lived with those songs in my iPod, in my in-ears, in my ears every night, and just learned 16 songs in, 4 or 5 days and did the gig. And then after that, we were just, the promoter came out, and Alice and Coop came out and said, my God, it sounds great. You guys really, we were kind of sat down, and I remember a few people saying to us, you guys should really do this. Thankfully, the songs are there. And I know, believe me, I give it up to that legacy every time I do those songs, as faithfully as I can possibly do, because I want fans that still want to hear that stuff to enjoy it.
I dig it, man.
And I don't make it like, I don't make it about me. I just go on stage and do what I do. Granted, I can sing the material. I don't think I sound like Jani, but I mean, the melody's the melody. I can sing the songs, and we kind of kept it going. So there's a point of pride to keep that going, for not just for fans, not just for my 4 guys, but for all of it together.
Yeah, I still dig it. I'm still an 80s fan to this day. I mean, I still like it, so thanks.
Well, like I said, it's not lost on me how fortunate I am.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate it. I work really hard every night to do it.
Now,
so
the new album that's getting ready to come out, hopefully next year, you said, or maybe before that, possibly. But you guys,
it'll be sometime in 2017. We're kind of hell bent on making it happen. We took a little time between just to kind of get our heads together about how we want it to sound. I just didn't want to throw another record out in 2.3 years or whatever you do, to satisfy whoever.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Are they?
But I'm sorry, you had a question.
No, man, you're fine. You're fine.
Too much coffee, man. Sorry.
No, hey, trust me. I love these interviews like this. Go in depth and stuff. That's perfect. On this new album, Robert, are there any songs, man, that didn't make the Rockaholic album that may possibly go on this one?
You're not the first person who's asked me that. I want to say I don't think so, because we really were, you're a different person at different times in your life, and you get struck by different things. We wrote a lot of stuff for Rockaholic, but then, and we put 14 or 15 songs. We put way too many songs on that record. I think it's just been a long time coming, and we had a bunch of songs we didn't put on there, which is true. But sifting through them, I kind of like a record to be about who you are at that point in time. And granted, maybe there are songs that are sitting around that in some people's catalogs, or a songwriter brings you something that's just, undeniable. Oh my God, we have to record this. I get that. I understand it. Good song is a good song. But I like the chemistry of whatever comes into my head at that period in my life, and then it becomes your little yearbook. It becomes your scrapbook or reminder of that period in time. Mm-hmm. If I took a song from 10 years ago and said, well, I think this is great, it would be from 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Is that, maybe that's valid, and maybe I'm just absolutely full of shit. I don't know.
No, you're right.
I do, what I did want to do, and I haven't, I have archived, notebooks from hell, they're everywhere, but they're in storage or they're in boxes and, in the house or whatever. I may go through those now that you bring it up. You may have turned the tide right now.
Oh boy.
I might go through those and say, okay, is there anything I was thinking that was just not crap? If there's something that was good, but I never used, maybe,
Yeah.
Well, there are songs that inspire me that I go, God, in the most faithful fan way, I wish I could figure out a way to let this song inspire me. I call it ripping off another person's hit, but I'm not trying to, when you hear a song on a record, you go, oh, that's an Aerosmith song, or that sounds just like this. I don't want to do that, but there are certain songs that I think my whole life I've been trying to inspire me to write a hopefully decent enough version of what I think that song means to me. Those come out every once in a while, like Adam's Apple, Aerosmith. Mm-hmm. That's one of the coolest guitar riffs ever written. I don't care where you shop. That's what, if you've never heard it, you're going to listen to it, even if you don't like Aerosmith, which I couldn't understand. But
yeah,
it's that's not liking food. But I make a joke. I think I've made the joke somewhere along the roads. I've been trying to rip off and rewrite that lick for years. And I told Brad Whitford that too. My old guitar tech from Clive Love has worked for Aerosmith for the longest time. I think I might have told Brad that. I'm like, you play all these cool riffs, and you wrote that riff for Adam's Apple, didn't you? He's like, man, I've been trying to rewrite and rip that off for years. And he just laughed.
Well, everybody has an influence. So
yeah, we are all children of our influences, and everybody steals in that, in the loving way, in the lovingly faithful way. You can't help anybody. Even if somebody comes out with something that is truly completely original, that person was shaped by something.
Exactly.
Even if your influences are, Hanna-Barbera cartoons and the Police Academy movies, you're gonna figure it out.
I love the Police Academy movies.
Who doesn't?
Oh man. What can fans expect at a show from the Mighty Warrant if you guys have not got to see Warrant yet?
I sweat a lot. I don't stand still.
Yeah.
I don't stare at my shoes when I sing. I believe audiences listen with their eyes, and I didn't make that up. I won't want to quote anybody, but it's somebody everybody knows who I sat next to a plane with coming back from England one show, and I ended up sitting next to him, and we sat and talked, and he said that. And I mean, I've heard it before, but that when he said it, it just stuck in my head. He says, "Man, they're not musicians. They're not all hip to every nuance of what you're doing musically or vocally. They listen with their eyes." I'm thinking, okay, you're right. That to me is Steve Marriott. That to me is David Lee Roth. That to me is Steven Tyler. That to me is Freddie Mercury. That to me is Otis Redding, and like James Brown and Prince and Roger Daltrey. And they are not just to listen to. You get a ton out of listening to them, and God willing, I've always strived to be good enough to listen to and not get turned off. But you also want to entertain people. I am an entertainer. I'm not up there, I'm not known for my dance moves probably, but the thing is, it's still a visual show as much as it's an audio kind of thing. So you have to do that. My band is a bunch of guys that still love playing music. You're going to hear the songs that you remember. If you're a Warrant fan, you're going to get turned on to a couple that you may not even know. We'll play a couple of deep cuts. Like I said earlier, and I know I reiterate, but you see 5 guys on stage for the right reasons, having fun, playing songs that they love to play, and hopefully people love to hear. And I want some damn audience participation. I don't ask for much.
Yeah,
But I like shows where people are screaming back at me.
Yeah.
You get all that energy back. I'll give out. I'll pour it out 100 and blah blah % all I can, and I really do get off on that trait of emotion and energy back and forth.
And the fans
so
feel
if you're sitting down and staring at your iPhone, you're not my kind of audience member.
And the fans feel it. We feel what you guys are doing on stage. Trust me.
Well, I you'd always like to think so, and you're hopeful that that's what happens. And when it does happen, you absolutely, believe me, on my side of the stage, you absolutely know it when you're getting it back like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys prefer the digital era of recording albums now, Robert, or do you guys, just rather be in a studio and record everything? Because I know it's all changed now. What do you guys prefer?
I love playing live shows. That's the excitement for me. I mean, there's a craft and there's a fun to be had in the studio, and I've had a lot of fun in the studio. But there is nothing else. I know I've said this before, but I hate to sound like I'm quoting myself, which is pompous and sound like a jackass. But I'm my most comfortable and my happiest when I'm on my side of the microphone and there's a bunch of people on the other side of the microphone. You know what I mean? I like to be running around and sweating and fighting for a breath because I'm running my ass off and screaming into a microphone. So the push and pull of a live band, it's kind of fun, a little dangerous, and when it all comes together in just the right way, it is the absolute drug for me anyway. And as an audience member, we all started out as fans first. Mm-hmm. I like listening to recorded, dare I say, albums. Back in the day, before everything became, before the MTV wave and everything like that, you had to wait to see your favorite band on Midnight Special or Saturday Night Live, or you had to wait for them to come to your damn town. Yeah. You had to read liner notes and look at still photographs in magazines and on albums to know what they look like. So you're right. It was about the music a little more, I believe, a little less about the image. Now everything it's absolutely flipped in a lot of ways, where the low bandwidth and the low resolution quality of an MP3 that you hear on your earbuds in your iPhone is not, let's just say, not as high quality as what you could be listening to. Yeah. So people have become accustomed to that. They're used to that level of what it should sound like and what your latest Twitter feed reveals to them, and what secrets about your personal life they all feel they're entitled to know. I kind of like my rock stars with a little more mystery. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I don't wear that badge. I'm just a guy who plays in a band. Like I don't walk around and talk about myself in the third person. That shit makes me sick. So I'm just super lucky. I get to do the greatest job in the world for me, and thankfully they still let me do it.
Let's talk about the loyalty of the fans of Warrant, and plus Warrant still being around all these years, man, and the fans still And plus adding more fans day by day to you guys. What's that mean to you all, man? How's that impress you?
The Warrant fan base has actually always kind of impressed me as being, if you're a Warrant fan, you're a rabid Warrant fan. You're not like, yeah, I heard that. There are the peripheral people like, oh, yeah, right, Cherry Pie, I remember that girl. Or I remember that video, or I saw Warrant back and blah, blah, blah. It's funny, if we do meet and greets, the cool thing is the tried and true Warrant fans, all the way down to the kids, and I mean quite literally someone's kid. Everybody's got a story. And that's the fun thing about meet and greets, because in a way, they can't wait to lay on you some sort of, anecdote they have from their life that relates somehow to what brought them to this meet and greet right here where you're standing, whatever, on a day off or an hour before you go on stage or whenever it is. And they'll tell you their story. Oh, my kids rented a movie and I heard Uncle Tom's Cabin or Cherry Pie or Heaven or whatever, and I look over and it's this, and my kids are enjoying this movie, so I brought them to your concert. Or, first time I got laid, I was in, blah, blah, blah in high school, and, 32 Pennies was playing or whatever. And it's just funny and really sweet to get all those stories. In
your own opinion, and I know you've been there for a couple of years with Warrant, but what does Warrant bring to the table for music still to this day, Robert?
It's just an American rock band, Hopefully, it's not just cast aside. It's a shortcut to thinking to say, oh, yeah, hair band, whatever, from 20-something years ago. Okay, cool, you can say that, sure. There were some really well-crafted songs, and Jani was a really good frontman and a great singer. Mm-hmm. So when you hear the original versions of, the first couple of 3 records, that was really happening. These guys play with fire and emotion. They're not just phoning it in. That's what I like about it. And like I said, I was a fan first. To be able to do those songs and see people singing those lyrics back, 20 some odd, between 20 and 30 years later, is really cool. I am in that unique position.
What made you want to become a musician? What was that spark that said, that's what I want to do?
Let's see. These are good questions, by the way.
Thank you.
I think, and I'm sure there's so many people in my position that have these similar stories. There's this epiphany, pivotal moment where I used to play the piano. It was my first instrument. And a little kid, my first grade teacher learns that I play the piano, probably from my mom or dad, being a proud parent. Mm. So I'm playing, I was hired, at my first gig, was being hired by my first grade teacher, Miss Kunak, to, my parents had moved to the suburbs, so I'm in that traditional suburban, whatever it is, kindergarten through 8th grade kind of, public school. And I had to play while everyone else sang and spoke the Pledge of Allegiance. So that was my first gig. Every morning, that was my gig. I think the first time you sing, my first memories, and I'm talking 2-3 years old, are singing 3-part harmony with my mom and dad on long car trips. I had favorite songs. My dad had a little bit of a history, and I get that genetic advantage maybe. He had a little kind of semi-pro musical career back in the late 50s, New York City doo-wop kind of stuff. So
cool.
That was the music. That was the music up until the time I was maybe 8 or 10. That's what I listened to. I mean, exclusively. No 60s, 70s British blues, rock, any of that American stuff after that. It was really, I had to go to an external source to get turned on to all these other things. So I think my dad sat me down. I watched Tom Jones on the Andy Williams show or Mike Douglas show or one of those, as a little kid, I don't know how old you are, but if you're any student of history, those were the places you saw whatever the pop or classical music acts. He would sit me down. I remember being sat down and being shown the first TV performance of the Jackson 5. I think it was on the Andy Williams show. Old 70s variety shows. I remember seeing Tom Jones, the jumpsuit, the kind of Elvis-y. I knew who Elvis was. My dad sat me down, made me listen to Mr. Sinatra. As he was like, shh, be quiet, Mr. Sinatra's singing. So I was exposed to all of that, and then I saw Tom Jones, and Tom Jones had that crooner kind of voice, but then he could growl, and he's doing the kind of Welsh Elvis thing, and chicks are throwing panties up at him. I'm going, what? And I remember listening to an 8-track in my parents' home my mom and dad on the weekends. My dad was a traveling salesman or just a regular, 9-to-5er. And my mom stayed home and raised kids, but on the weekends they always had music playing around the house. The record player was going. I remember the 8-track player, vividly, a Tom Jones 8-track, and he's just growling, and you could feel it. I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was distortion, and it was his voice almost distorting in the mic, and I just was mesmerized by that, going, what the fuck is that? That's not Frank Sinatra. That's not Elvis. This is like scary almost. And I think that with watching some performances on TV as a kid, I think that was that moment where you just go, oh, they sing. I sing. Yeah, I sing with mom and dad. Okay, I understand harmony and stuff like that. And, I was like the 2- and 3-year-old to go into church and singing as loud as possible and asking my dad why the pastor's wife sang flat.
Yeah.
And being like the annoying little kid, Yeah. So for me, those are those moments where you get applause the first few times, or they recognize, or you see something that just changes. You go like, "Oh, I'm doing that," but I kept it in the background because I was in school and I played sports, and it was, sports and academia kind of took over, and that's the role you think you're supposed to have. And then I was in the high school playing a couple of bands. You do the garage band thing, and I thought piano was dorky, so I, got a guitar and taught myself because I could read music. I taught myself. Mostly, I took a few guitar lessons, but just taught myself enough guitar to play in a garage band. And then all of a sudden you realize you open up the garage door and all the cheerleaders that live in your neighborhood are sitting cross-legged on your driveway because they heard the music. Like that's your first concert,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So playing my country tis of thee on the piano in the first grade, that was my first solo gig. Then you have your first band gig when you've got a garage band, quite literally in the garage. You just go, oh, I'm doing this. Then I was in college and driving home from class and hating being in college and hearing everything on the radio and going, wow, I can sing some of these songs. I mean, I can sing a lot of what I hear on the radio. Maybe I should probably just do this. And just got in a band, and it just snowballed from there. You find like-minded people, and you go, all right, I'm doing this.
What's it mean to you and the band when you receive an email from a fan, or prior to the shows or after the shows, they come up and they tell you guys, hey, your music has pulled them through a bad experience, gave them inspiration to overcome obstacles, or just made them relax and escape reality of everyday life? What's that mean to you guys?
Well, that's the goal, isn't it? That's the payoff.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I have a cool job, and I make a decent buck, and I have a very nice life, and I work really hard to be able to keep that going. But sure, that's the reward that you can't buy, and that's the thing. That's the approval that I think a lot of entertainers seek with their performance in a very genuine way. And when you get that back, oh, dude, it absolutely never ceases to make your day. And very thankfully, I've had people come up to me and, or watch them do it to other people, in your surrounding where it does affect somebody. And having that fan, somebody openly tell you, hey, I'm a fan, like that takes a lot to actually do that. I think that takes courage, and that takes a lot because you're opening up to somebody. But then again, if you're performing a song, okay, you're good at your job. Or if you wrote a song, oh, these words of this song, this touched me, helped me get through a bad time. I've had all of that happen. I've been really lucky to have a lot of those situations, and that was part of what I was getting at with meet and greets, because people will come up to you and say, hey, this affected me, and thanks. And I've done that. I mean, I've done that to other singers that were heroes of mine that end up being friends or mentors or contemporaries or, peers. I don't consider myself to be a peer of people that I thought were gods when I was a kid, but some of them have become close friends, and that's really rewarding too. The first time you go up to them, it's like, hey man, not for nothing, but when I was a kid, I wanted to be you when I grew up.
Right. Yeah.
And here I am playing on the same bill with you. So thank you. Just thanks.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times that I wanted to be like Axl Rose when I was growing up, or then when I heard Metallica be like, be James Hetfield up there singing and kicking ass and everything. You know what I mean? And like, so yeah, I heard
Axl. So I've only heard reports. I haven't even had a minute to look up stuff because we've been so busy while GNR's been on tour.
Dude.
I mean, I remember being brand new in Lynch Mob and going out to a club in LA and running into Axl and us both having a little tequila and a little beer together. And sitting and talking over, said he's always been really cool to me. I heard he just sounds like a damn freight train. He sounds so good on tour right now, and I'm really happy for that. I personally would have loved to see, I'm the fan that saw them back in the day, and I want all 5 original guys, but because they're all still alive. But I understand what it's like being in the band, so I just go, okay, I got to see it back then. Glad they're still out there doing it.
Yeah,
I've had conversations with Duff and Slash in the past, and I've met and hung out with those guys a little bit both, and they're I respect them a lot.
Axl is on point, dude. It's like they never left. I mean, seriously.
Well, good for him, man. I'm glad. It goes to show, if you focus and take care of yourself and love what you do. I mean, that guy was a unbelievably powerful frontman, dude. When GNR came out and they were playing in clubs like the 4 Appetite hit, and nobody really knew, like it was just getting the radio, and they really worked that record for a while. To have been lucky enough to see some of that stuff happen in real time was great. I am the kind of person, I'm not the kind of guy, like I guess everybody's got friends who play music at one point in time, and they see a band, they go, God, they just made me sick, made me want to throw my instruments away. They were so good. I was like, I would always have the opposite. I would see Kiss at Madison Square Garden. I would see Van Halen at the Meadowlands, or I would see, whatever, Paul McCartney at Dodger Stadium, or see Guns in a club, or see Nirvana when they came out. And I would just go, dude, that's so inspiring. It would jack me up to watch a band on fire on stage. Always has.
I just like to say, as a fan over the years, thank you for what you guys have done. Thank you for what you have done coming into the band. And just as an overall fan, just thank you guys.
Man, I really appreciate it. The support of every sort of publicity and press is, the way we keep people aware. I mean, how would anybody know?
Yeah, exactly.
That we're playing a show somewhere, that we're going to, that I got to fly to Detroit on Friday and play on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, nowadays, the information age, anybody with Google knows, way too much about everybody. But it's funny.
How can folks stay in touch with you guys, buy some merchandise, and come check out your tour? How can you do that, Robert?
It's the easiest thing in the world. WarrantRocks.com, Warrant Rocks on Facebook and Instagram. All over all the social media, man. We just, we kind of don't go nuts with it, but it's normally Eric or myself, or Turner or myself, posting stuff on Instagram when we're doing show dates and, the travel. Just, you can always look that up and see what we're doing. Show dates are always the hub is the Warrant Rocks site. There's merch on there. There's merch at shows. Man, I would love to put the next record out on vinyl. I'd like to do a vinyl pressing. I think it'd be killer.
Yeah, it'd be nice. A lot of bands.
Somebody asked me the other day about Rockaholic and vinyl. I was like, yeah, we thought about it at the time, and it never really came to fruition, but maybe we'll do it this time.
Hey, before I let you go, will you care to do a promo for the show?
Certainly. Hey, everybody, this is Robert Mason from the band Warrant, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great music coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and Uber City Radio. Thanks, Robert.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.